Welcome back to SnowRunner, guys, and today we are going to be on console on the Xbox Series X, and we're going to be checking out not only the brand new DnD Taco Pro mod, but we're also going to be doing a little bit of a comparison with the R&R Warrior, aka the Jeep Gladiator. We're going to be out here on the TNB Trails map today, and the entire scenario that we're playing through in this video can be recreated on your console at home, providing that you have the allowable RAM on your console, basically. Now, once again, the console RAM limit is dynamic, so the RAM limit on your friend's console may not be the same as the RAM limit on your console. It all depends on what console you have, and as always, if you have any trouble running the mod combination that you see in this video, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see kind of what we can do, and maybe if we can find a little bit of a workaround for that. So, but without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the build of the DnD Taco Pro, and let's see what it can do. Now, when the branded version of this mod was originally released, obviously as a Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, there was a lot of support within the community for a console-friendly version to be made. And here, we can see that console-friendly version running on consoles, happily running on console. Now, one of the things that I really like about this vehicle is the fact that it offers a full selection of tires. When I say full selection, I don't necessarily mean the tire compounds themselves, but I mean a full selection of actual compounds, right? All the way over to chained tires and studded tires for ice and snow. Now, I see a lot of people in the comments when I do either basically drives or customization videos on other vehicles asking why doesn't XYZ vehicle have chained tires or studded tires, and thankfully this one does. Now, I do realize that some vehicles leave those out, either if they're just not designed to be used in snow, or maybe the creator doesn't really prefer to use them on snow maps, and I completely understand that, and really at the end of the day, it is up to the creator of the mod to include those snow and ice compounds of tires, but thankfully, this vehicle is really able to be used on whatever kind of map you want because it does feature the studs and the chains. Now, going through the colors here, I really was almost about to go with the orange, and then I was like, wait a minute. That, like, silverish white looks really, really, really good, and I was like, I kept going back and forth between the orange and the white, and I ended up settling on the white at the end of the day, and then, of course, we gotta throw beans on the dash. That automatically, like, drives this thing up more than a couple of notches, the fact that we could throw beans on the dash. It's just, like, one of those cool little things that you could do. Now, for our hauler, we actually have the R&R 3500, and we have Red's long and wide gooseneck trailer. I was thinking about doing the standard one, and then I was like, you know what? I want to give these vehicles just a little bit of breathing room, and so I grabbed the gigantic trailer, and really at the end of the day, yes, this trailer was too big for the application. I mean, there was a lot of unused space, really, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's not really that big of a deal when I think about it, and it's like, I would rather have some breathing room for the vehicles than have them, like, smushed together, but again, that's my personal taste. Now, since you guys have obviously seen me build the R&R Warrior many times, I decided to go ahead and speed up the build of this thing, and really at the end of the day, the build was very simple. It was just kind of a trail build, nothing too over the top, a little bit of overland equipment, a little bit of recovery gear, and some tube doors, and a low center of gravity suspension with 40s, and that was good to go. It was out the door, and I decided to go ahead and kind of paint it a little bit of a light blue color, and of course throw beans on the dash. So, once again, figured there wasn't really all that much of a big deal of, like, showing that build, since you guys have seen this thing a lot. You guys, at this point, I'm sure all have your personal style on how you would build the R&R Warrior anyway. So now that we've got these both on the trailer, I did want to take a minute to really look and reflect on the fact that we literally, or at least in console-friendly terms, basically have a second-gen dually, a Tacoma TRD Pro, and a Jeep Gladiator, all here running happily together on a console. Like, back in the, and I know I say this a lot, but man, as I actually look at this, right, back in the MudRunner days, we would have thought, you would have been called crazy for thinking this was going to happen. You literally would have been called absolutely bonkers for thinking that we were going to have this as a reality in the future of this game series. So, the level that we're at now is really unmatched by any other game. There is no other off-road game that can give you this level of immersion and community support and, you know, modded maps to use and modded vehicles to use. And I'm sure that somebody out there is going to say, well, this game could do this, and this game could do that, and this game has this. And I'm like, yes, other games do have features that this game does not have. But at the same time, there really is nothing else that puts all of these things together the same way this game does. So with that being said, I decided to go ahead and get right out on the road, and instead of taking the main exit of the garage, I decided to take the back way. I never take the back way, and I decided to do that because it's actually the most direct route to the trail I wanted to use for this particular comparison. Now, granted, there are obviously quite a few differences between the Taco and the Warrior, and really it's less of a comparison and more of a personal choice in terms of what kind of style of off-roading you like. Now, the Taco is definitely going to be a little bit more along the side of favoring the... I don't even want to say favoring realism because they both drive differently, right? The Warrior, the front tires are pushed further forward and pushed further out, obviously because of the solid axle configuration, whereas the Taco is obviously an IFS. Now, we did put a long travel IFS setup on this Taco, but even then, there are going to be some obvious differences between the experience you're going to get from off-roading an IFS vehicle versus off-roading a solid axle vehicle. Now, really though, the only thing about the Taco that I kind of had to get used to on this particular trail run, and you'll see this when we get to the trailhead, is the fact that the approach angle is not quite what I thought it was going to be. I think in my head I saw, like, you know, I saw the 40s, I saw the long travel suspension, and I took some lines that initially I thought were going to be okay, and it turned out very quickly that those lines were not going to be okay. And I also definitely think that in terms of rocks, these tires could have the rock grip dialed up just a little bit. But then again, at the same time, when I got to thinking about it, I was like, wait a minute. These tires, or at least specifically on the Taco, are definitely tuned more to be friendlier to the stock game balance and stock map balance than they are to mod maps. And so we are taking it just a tiny little bit out of its element here. Not too far, but just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. So do bear that in mind when we get onto the trails. Now, heading out in the Taco, this was my first run ever in this vehicle on this trail. And because of that, there are going to be some odd winch recoveries, and there are going to be some odd moments where the winch is used just to prevent rollovers or falls or anything like that. Because, again, I don't really have all that much seat time in this vehicle yet, but I would really like to get some seat time, as it is a really fun vehicle to drive, and it definitely challenges you as a driver to sort of think outside the box, especially if you are mainly used to driving solid front axle vehicles. And I know that there's going to be people out there that'll want to get into the solid front axle versus, you know, independent front suspension debate. And, you know, you can get into that debate if you want to, but at the same time, it all comes down to what you like to drive and what applies the best to the scenario at hand for you. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, the style of driving with an independent front suspension, you're going to be doing a lot more angling onto the initial obstacle. Whereas with a solid front axle, a lot of stuff you can just climb right over. But with that, once again, with that independent front, you're going to be turning and then turning back, right? So let's say you were going to approach a rock, you would turn to the right, and then as you climb up, you would turn back to the left. Whereas with like a solid front axle vehicle, you would just figure out where you wanted your tires to be and then crawl straight over it. Now, this particular obstacle right here definitely was a little bit tricky for me, and I think that the wheelbase of this truck was just not particularly happy with this trail. I'm sure that it would be happy with other trails on this map, but a lot of the obstacles on this trail were just literally, the gaps were the exact right length to make this wheelbase not happy. And so, as unfortunate as that may be, it's just kind of the way that it happened when we ended up choosing this trail. But once again, that driving strategy that you're going to have on trails like this with this truck is going to be all about the angles, all about angling over things, angling around things, and really positioning that weight exactly where it needs to be. Now, I also think that the fact that I had so much weight in the bed may have kind of upset the balance of the truck a little bit in terms of going up a trail this steep. And as you can see, It's not all that much gear, but I think it might be just enough that when you're going up stuff that's this steep, it may legitimately make the truck unhappy. But that does not at all take away from the fact that this truck is an absolutely extremely enjoyable and engaging driving experience, because it really does constantly make you think, and it constantly keeps you on your toes. And if that's the kind of driving style that you like, that's definitely going to be a good choice for you to drive then. Now, I will also say that I think a little bit of the grip tuning has been done to sort of keep this thing a little bit more in line with your vanilla vehicles, so it doesn't feel overpowered. And I think a lot of care was definitely given to make sure that this thing was balanced in campaign mode. And once again, I cannot at all fault this truck for that. I know there's a lot of people out there that really like to play the campaign with mods, but at the same time, they don't want those mods to make the game any easier. And so I think that this truck really falls into that category really, really well. The only thing that's going to make it just a tiny bit more powerful than the standard in-game trucks is obviously what engine you go with. Now, at this point in the video, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section down below on how your experience with this truck has been, as it's now been out on consoles for just a little while now. And if you have had a chance to try it and take it wheeling or use it in your campaign, let me know not only what your experience with it has been, but let me know what you use it for. Do you find yourself using it for different purposes than you might have done with other modded scout trucks? Or do you find yourself trying to use it for the same purposes as other scouts, but developing a different driving style around the vehicle itself? So those are a couple of different ways that I would love to hear from you guys and hear your feedback on what you are enjoying about this truck. Or maybe if you think there are things that you would like to see added to it, that would definitely be something that I would love to hear in the comment section down below. Now, obviously, I am not the creator of this truck, but at the same time, I love hearing the community sharing their opinions on all of these mods, because really at the end of the day, I love playing this game too, and I love playing around with all of these mods, and you know, I love hearing all of those community opinions and the community feedback. So I think at the end of the day, if we can get a really good conversation going about, you know, how we use our trucks and how we like to drive them, we really can start a fascinating conversation on how people use their mods and use their trucks in this game. Because some people like trail riding, some people like mud trucks, some people like hauling, some people only like playing the campaign missions. And so you really do have such a wide and such a diverse lineup of ways to use a truck, really. Now, this hill right here is a perfect example of how having all of that weight in the back definitely made it a little bit difficult for me to climb. The actual time where I was able to get the truck to kind of pop up over the top of the hill was probably my third or fourth attempt or so. And really, it just once again highlights that if you're going to be doing trails like this, I would probably suggest going a little bit lighter on the tools in the bed. It was probably not the greatest decision to go with that much stuff back there. Now, let's go ahead and hop out of the Taco and into the Warrior. Now, this Warrior is not running the max engine, even though that's the soundtrack that you guys are hearing. That's not the engine that we're running. So the engine that we're actually running in this thing is the EcoDiesel V6, and I figured that would be a little bit closer to the power of the Taco. They're both rated S+ for power to weight, but obviously the power ratings are actually going to be a little bit different, but I figured once again that would be a good way to get them close. Now, right off the bat, you can see where that solid front axle is coming into play, although it's not having a super easy time of it. It's still got to work, and so you do still have to think about where you position your tires. But then again, at the end of the day, that solid front axle is going to be better for dedicated rock crawling. And while the solid front axle is better at rock crawling, there are a lot of things that the IFS can do that the solid front axle can't necessarily do quite as well. For example, high-speed driving, the IFS is going to be better. Bumps, whoops in the terrain, the IFS is going to be better. So there are obviously trade-offs when you go both ways, but when you put it in a rocky, you know, slow-paced trail crawling environment like this, that solid front axle is really going to start to show how it was designed for environments like this. And really, at the end of the day, it's also no joke whatsoever that the tires on the Warrior are grippier on the rocks than the tires on the Taco. And once again, that's not any kind of criticism of the Taco. That just shows the way these mods were programmed and the way they were set up in terms of the coding. So that's, once again, personal choice of the mod creators themselves, and I can't fault either one for making the decisions they did. But of course, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section down below on everything we talked about in this video. And with all of that being said, please share any of your thoughts or opinions or gameplay experiences on either one of these mods in that comment section down below. And if you would like to see more and stay up to date, make sure you are subscribed and have those notifications turned on. And I will see you guys in the next one. Talk to you all later, and I hope you guys enjoyed.